Hello, dear friends. We are sincerely glad to welcome you again. And today we will talk with the esteemed Igor Mikhailovich Danilov.
Greetings.
Igor Mikhailovich, thank you very much for the series of recent videos in which we talked about the alive and the dead. Our viewers are incredibly grateful to you for your openness, for such frankness, for calling things by their proper names, because this truth really allows people to take a look inside themselves and to see a lot both in themselves and in the people around them, in the world as a whole. And there is already an understanding of why we live in such a world, why it is so cruel, why it is full of injustice, why there is a devaluation of human values in this world, because it is ruled by the dead in the literal sense of the word. But the most valuable thing is the look inside oneself and this assessment of inner states, so to say, because people have shared that when they really look inside themselves, they understand that they have also encountered manifestations of this destructive background by subpersonalities, and that they really do affect a person's choices and his life as a whole. And of course, after such an assessment, there is a huge motivation to work on oneself, to take responsibility, and to change this world, to give this world back to the alive. Guys also brought up very interesting points, the points of duality which they hear within themselves. On the one hand, they hear a thought, well, is it really possible to resist all this, all that is happening in this world? While on the other hand, they understand that there are some hidden reserves of incredible and colossal power within them. And there is this confidence that thanks to these reserves, it is really possible to change a lot, both in themselves and in the world as a whole. But a question arises, how can these reserves be activated for the benefit of people? Is it safe for a person and for people in general to do so?
It is dangerous. I would say it is very dangerous. If we look at the core, the use of power in the modern consumerist format is very dangerous. And if we look from time immemorial, it has been told about hidden reserves in human capabilities. They sounded science fictional. And basically, many movies, various ballads, legends, and those very comics with superheroes were created based on these examples.
These superabilities.
Sure, this is a little bit exaggerated and presented a bit differently, but in fact, every person possesses considerable power that is capable of changing the world. This is true. It is really so. Another matter is that we don't know how to use this power, and it is not a vestige at all. It's a real power that is present in every human being, but we have forgotten how to use it in the literal sense of the word.
How to unfold it and how to use it. There is no manual, right?
Absolutely right. I'll say, thank God we have forgotten. Just imagine that in the consumerist format, people would have such power that enables them to influence each other, not only physically, not only verbally, and by means of some mechanisms, but also with the help of a power that is extremely difficult to resist. In order to resist the power which a person is endowed with, one should possess a much greater power. Needless to say, the consumerist format is built on confrontation, struggle, and opposition to one another. Imagine what would have happened to our world and whether this world would have existed today. It is highly doubtful that we would have lived to this day if people had not opportunely forgotten how to use power. And that's a good thing.
You know, every person thinks that he will definitely use it for the benefit of people, that he won't abuse it.
You know,
Everyone thinks of himself as a positive person.
I just wanted to say that each of us, every person, believes that he is a good person.
Yes.
Even when he does something bad, he always has an excuse. I'm doing this only because of the circumstances. Let's take a simple example. Let's say, let it be a hypothetical and unrealistic one. But let's imagine a situation. There lives a young good guy, the soul of the company. In fact, he is popular and famous. And then life turns in such a way that he can become the leader of a whole country. Let it be a small one, no matter which one, but a whole country. He certainly wants to improve the situation, and he agrees to lead this country. People vote for him, they elect him, and once he's in power, let's say he realizes that he will have to do disgusting things, absolutely not what he wanted. He is a normal person, but he gets into such a situation where they tell him, either you will earn billions and live as one of the chosen ones, and all of your descendants, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren will be provided for. Or someone else will come in your place and do exactly the same. Why? Because those who are much stronger than him have their own plans. What will that person do? After all, he's not just a wonderful, cheerful, and good person with good intentions, but he is also a human being. And he understands very well that if he doesn't do those bad things which will inevitably affect people's lives, then someone else will do that. How can a person justify himself in such a situation? Yes, I will do what they want, but at least I will be able to alleviate something somewhere. I will be able to make something easier and milder, so that it is more acceptable to people and not so hard.
Also, when you face the fact that, unfortunately, human consciousness works in such a way that it won't necessarily, let's say, praise you, in fact, it will always be dissatisfied with the authorities, then for whom should you do your best when?
Understanding comes later.
Yes, right.
When a person is already trying to do something good, but people are people. People are always dissatisfied.
Yes.
No matter what you do when you are in power, there will always be those who will criticize you, who will do everything to tarnish even a good person. Why? Because everyone wants to be in that position. It is really so. Because as soon as a person has risen above the others, excuse me, there appears the popularity tax. People begin to hate him, so to say, and throw all sorts of filth at the person. Does the person feel offended? Imagine a leader of a country who is really trying to do something good with all his might, and he immediately gets a lot of hatred and negative statements addressed to him. Does he feel offended?
He does.
He feels offended. That's the answer. And everyone he sees mostly filth and everything bad. In other words, he doesn't see those people who are grateful to him and who support him.
He only sees what threatens him.
Quite right. Why? That's how our consciousness is arranged, friends. And that's how we perceive the world. And whoever takes that position would behave in exactly the same way with a small difference. Someone would be much tougher and less principled. Someone else would be more favorably disposed. But he would still behave in exactly the same way, regardless of the country and regardless of the actions of top leaders. If he is not the master, the real master, and if he is forced to obey, say, a group of countries, or someone much more powerful than him, he will do what he is commanded, even if he came with good intentions initially. He will even go as far as letting his country collapse and disappear. But if he is a good man, he will try to do that in a milder way. However, if he resents people for criticizing him all the time, he might do it in a harsher way. That's how vulnerable we really are. Vulnerable to criticism and personal ambitions. And let's speak about the fact that almost all of us are indeed afflicted with selfishness and pridefulness. Again, for some reason, we believe that if we act against our conscience, there's a reason for that. Isn't that so? You know, we've now touched upon a situation. It is hypothetical, but it can be applied to almost any country. And we will find that this is really so. Why? Because some might say it's just these people are like this. A normal person doesn't seek power and doesn't go beyond humaneness. But maybe it's the other way around. A normal person seeks power precisely in order to improve something. It's just that when he attains this power, he realizes that his capabilities are limited. It would be a different story if a person had power without any limits, right? So I propose to conduct an interesting experiment. So far, a thought experiment, not a real one. It is undesirable to conduct a real experiment such as the one I want to propose to you, friends. Let's begin with my appeal to you, friends. Don't be lazy. Let's all together try to conduct this experiment. It requires a little bit of your attention and a serious approach. Please treat it not as an experiment, but as a fact. And dedicate at least 2 or 3 days of your attention to this experiment. Believe me, it will be beneficial for you, for everyone on this planet, and for all of us, in order to understand what this world is like and why, and most importantly, what to do.
Very intriguing. Okay.
It is intriguing. It's interesting. As for the results of this experiment, you can write them in the comments, if they are brief. But if you have something to say, write to the Allat TV email with a note for Tatiana. Tatiana and I will read your answers if they are sincere and indeed constructive. Okay?
Great.
What is the idea of the experiment? Let's go in order, friends, so that you understand what I mean by a thought experiment. Let's imagine it first, and then we'll try to introduce this vision as reality. Imagine that you really have this in your possession. So, I'll stop the intrigue and start describing it. It's about the eye of God and the Vajra. These two tools, although their essence is one. Let's imagine that you become a lucky owner of this technology. Well, for those who are not quite in the know, or perhaps are visiting our channel for the first time, I'll explain why for the first time. Friends, let's also do the following. Not only will we do it ourselves, but for the purity of the experiment, let's ask our friends and acquaintances to take part in this experiment. After all, this is not hard, yet really interesting. And ask for their feedback and understanding on it. Only make sure that your friends and acquaintances, those who wish to take part in this experiment, also take it seriously, indeed, as reality. Let them evaluate the world we are in. Take a sensible, open-eyed look at the surrounding world we are in, a world in which wars are going on, in which we are forced, to eat grasshoppers. Some suggest that we should limit the consumption of meat to almost zero, while at the same time they suggest that we stop farming the animals we eat because they affect the climate. A world where various unacceptable ideologies are foisted upon us, along with other numerous manipulative technologies that are used against us and which are, again, aimed at destroying, let's say, even our honor and dignity. We are simply being openly manipulated and led to a point where there is famine in the world, so that in a world where everything has become more expensive, both gas and electricity, even firewood wouldn't be sold to people for their households. Actually, in some countries this is already being introduced. It becomes forbidden by law, which means conditions are being created for the survival of the strongest. But what about those who cannot earn enough? Are they supposed to freeze in the winter? a simple question. This world is full of injustice. It's a world where sick children do not receive proper help, and sometimes parents are forced to run around, hat in hand, begging for help simply so that some clinic for huge money would restore the health of the child of these unfortunate parents. Moreover, his health likely won't be restored to 100%, but at least some percentage, at least some chance, forces parents to go begging. Is that a normal world? A world where first aid to save a child's life costs a crazy amount of money, and so on and so forth. A world in which people kill people, in which people simply rob people, profiteer from other people's grief without remorse, just because if they are not the ones who profiteer, someone else will. And under this slogan, everyone who has such an opportunity, I emphasize it again, friends, think about it. Everyone who has such an opportunity is engaged in simply immoral, I would even say very bad activities, detrimental to all humankind, for the sake of personal benefit, just because they have such an opportunity. So now, your opportunities become tremendous. It's unimportant how it happened. Maybe someone from Agartha came specifically to you because of the luck of the draw. You know, someone played roulette and made a bet on you. Your number hit, and so you became the lucky possessor of this super technology. Let me go back to the technology. This technology isn't new. We hear about this technology from various legends, and it was mentioned in different, more ancient sources very often. This technology was owned by those people whom we now call priests, lamas, gods, and all that. But according to historical facts, it is practically known that this technology was owned by a man whose name was El. For those who don't know who he was, I recommend that you watch the video Atlantis, the Elite in Search of Immortality, on our channel. It is worth watching. Take a little time to learn slightly more than you know now. If you haven't watched this video, it forces one to think. And again, this is a classical example of what happens to a person who gets unlimited power in his hands. However, you're not that kind of a person. You have honor and conscience. You understand a lot. You are a good person, my friend. But someone from Agartha has brought you this technology in the form of a tablet, the remote control itself, or someone else has brought it to you. It doesn't matter. You have dug it up in a garden by chance, found it in ancient ruins, or received it by mail. God has decided that you are worthy, and you get a remote control to an entire system that uses a completely different physics. That physics which humanity doesn't possess today, but it has always existed. This technology is directly related to a number of pyramids built in this world. And the energy used in this case exists at any point of our universe. Thanks to this energy and this power, which that very El manipulated and which is embedded in the technology of the Eye of God and Vajra. Everything in this world exists, both the living and the dead. Everything is woven of it, but it gives tremendous opportunities to a person. In this case, to you, my friend. You receive a manual on how to use it, and you get the remote control. Let's describe everything in order. What is the eye of God? What exactly does it give you, my friend? Imagine that when you turn on the tablet, you can literally see any person. It's not just seeing him, and it doesn't mean that you see him like a photograph. You see him just like a little dot, like a snowflake. At first, there are a lot of snowflakes, but they stand out in certain groups. They change colors.
And based on the manual you'll receive,
You will clearly understand that one color indicates that someone is in danger, while the color of another person shows that it is precisely he who represents this danger. Moreover, it's enough for you to just want to see some person, and this technology immediately shows you where and exactly what place he is at this moment, who is next to him, and who he is in contact with. And there is another significant point about the eye of God. What also makes it important is that, if you want, it can easily control everyone who even starts thinking about you just a little bit. Why? Because we think in images, so it's enough for someone just to think about you. And this system will easily detect that person right away. Why? Because a picture will emerge in the person's head. Your image will emerge, and this image can easily be read by the Eye of God system itself. This means that if someone has a bad intention, you will see that. If he thinks something good about you, you will see that too. But this also applies to all people in the world. In other words, you can see everyone where they are. And thanks to the other technology, Vajra, you can literally do whatever you want to those people. Why? Because Vajra is able to influence the human brain, meaning its neurons. This suggests that, no matter how ridiculous it might look, it is possible to cause unstoppable diarrhea in a person, and medicine will be powerless. It is possible to cause almost any disease, and the body will cause it by using nocebo. A person will suffer, and no medicine will be able to eliminate that. Only you will be able to turn it off. You will be able to put a person into a vegetative state, meaning into a coma. You can turn off his vital functions in the literal sense of the word, merely with your desire. It will even be enough for you to just think about it and choose a punishment for any person. This is Vajra, but it can also stop bleeding, relieve pain, and cure many diseases by using placebo. In other words, it's a tool of punishment and reward, and it is in your hands. Moreover, it's a tool that will make you completely invulnerable to other people. I'll explain. Even if someone wants to create a similar remote control for this entire pyramidal complex and manipulate other people, including you, the Eye of God will see the slightest surge of this energy. This will happen even if someone wants to build something similar to this technology. But you have Vajra in your hands. So you will simply be able either to deactivate those people who would engage in that, or to deprive them of the ability to think. Everything is in your hands. These are real opportunities that turn a person into a judge of the world, so to say. And it is you who become that judge, my friend. What will you do? A simple question. Imagine that this tool is really in your hands. What will you do? Tell me, friend. Understanding the entire responsibility, you would transfer it to all of humanity. so as not to concentrate such temptation and such power in one hand. But how? And what does it mean, giving it to each and everyone in our consumerist world? After all, the world would instantaneously cease to exist. And you understand that. Would you give this technology to a good friend of yours? But think before you do that. Your friend is a good and wonderful person. You trust him, but will he remain such a good person after receiving the remote control? We remember what a revolution does to those who have carried it out. We also know what people who came to power did to those who had brought them to power. God forbid you step on the person's sore thumb or try to criticize your friend. If he acts in a wrong way, what would he do to you? Think about it. Can you trust anyone in this world but yourself? Take this seriously, my friend. This is extremely serious and a huge responsibility. And imagine what will happen if you, having such an opportunity, do not use this tool. After all, if it is given to you, the responsibility rests with you, and you must do something good. You must use this tool to make the world a better place. At this point, I'm asking you for one thing. Please be sincere and treat this experiment truly, seriously. You really possess this technology. You really have it, and upon completion, well, let's say, you will conscientiously work on this process for at least 3 days. You will think about it and use the technology. Then, 3 days later, not before, turn on the analysis. Do not rush to analyze your actions right away. Having the opportunity to use the eye of God and Vajra in your life, you will use it. Yes, before using it, you will analyze and think about it. So think, analyze, and use it. However, in 2 or 3 days, you will feel for yourselves, my friends, when you realize in this experiment that you are ready to give us an answer, the one that takes shape inside you. It is exactly what we're waiting for. After that, we will continue our discussion of this world. Why everything is so bad here and what to do about that, right? So, we are waiting for your letters and your comments. Thank you, friends. Let's just love each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, friends. Peace be with you, and I wish you success in the experiment.